You have so much potential. I hate to see it go to waste.
These videos are not for children. If you're a children, then piss off.
Hey there, it's me, your least favorite YouTuber, Infuso. And today, I have a really fun piece of what the fuck trivia for ya. Currently, it's an exciting time to be a superhero fan. And it's actually an exciting time to be a Smallville fan. As I've recently discussed on this channel, a sequel to Smallville is currently in the works. That's right, 11 years later, we're finally getting a season 11. So, if all goes well, we should be seeing a Smallville animated series sometime soon. But did you know that there was almost a Smallville spin-off that was set to coexist alongside the original? An Aquaman series, nonetheless. Which makes sense as the character was set up and established on that show during its 5th season, making his first appearance in an episode appropriately titled Aqua. Arthur, or as he's known here, AC, comes to Smallville to stop. And I want you to know, I'm not making this, I'm literally reading the official description here. To stop an underwater weapons project being developed by Luthor Corp. Because of course. In this episode, Aquaman becomes Awkward Man, as after saving Lois from drowning, he proceeds to then try to drown her with his tonsils the rest of the episode. And that's mostly it, that's the plot. That's the episode's plot. This episode, for one reason or another, drew pretty high ratings, and this gave those in charge the immediate idea to create a spin-off series starring the character. So you may be thinking to yourselves, oh okay, a show starring Aquaman actor Alan Ritchson, right? WRONG! Because despite being cast in the role in Smallville, the network felt that he was too green to carry a series on his own. So he was immediately brought in to be Aquaman, but then relieved of his Aquaman duties right quick. So in his place, the show cast Justin Hartley. Yes, that Justin Hartley.
What do you mean?
The guy who would just one season later go on to become the Green Arrow on Smallville.
What do you mean?
Here, Green Arrow is Aquaman, as opposed to on Smallville, where Aquaman was actually Hawk from Titans.
What do you mean?
Even more interesting is that Justin Hartley was cast as Green Arrow on Smallville, while Alan Ritchson was brought back in to continue to portray Aquaman on that series anyway.
What do you mean?
You process this however you need to process it. If you want to keep talking in it.
Tell me about a pilot you did that didn't get picked up, that you loved.
Aquaman, it's gotta be.
How pissed were you when Justin Hartley played Aquaman in the spin-off and you didn't?
I played Aquaman.
No, I wasn't mad at all.
Like, why didn't they consider you?
And at the time, UPN and Warner Brothers had merged to create the CW, and the president of the UPN had taken over. And he goes, he can't have his own show. Justin Hartley just came off Passions, and he's available, and we're going to go with Justin Hartley. And I was like, I don't know who that is, but great.
And I thought it had legs. It was really well written.
This is just really a whole thing already. But it gets even weirder when you realize that a whole bunch of the actors involved in this Aquaman pilot had either already or would go on to make appearances on Smallville. The actress who played Nadia, Adrienne Palicki, also played Kara the Kryptonian in Season 3 of Smallville. Proof! The actress who played Lieutenant Rachel Torres in the show also played Angel of Vengeance in Season 5 of Smallville. Admiral Brigman in the show was played by Rick Peters, who had a pretty memorable role in the first season of Smallville as Bob Rickman, a man who had the gift of the gab. And that gift came from Meteorite, as so many gifts on the show do. Kenny Johnson played a sheriff on Aquaman, and Tommy Lee on Smallville. No, not that Tommy Lee. Definitely not that Tommy Lee either. There you go, that's the one, there's a boy. Jesse from the pilot was also Jacob Finley on Smallville. Amber McDonald, who played Eva in the pilot of this series, also played the Poison Ivy-inspired Gloria on Smallville as well. So already this tie-in is using a whole bunch of familiar faces, but with different names. The show did have some star power attached to it, with Lou Diamond Phillips stepping in as Arthur's adoptive father, Tom Curry, and Ving Rhames, well, pretty much just being Ving Rhames. What else is he gonna do? Outside of detailing the strangeness that surrounds this never-aired, never-picked-up pilot, and the very odd factoids of its existence, there's really not a whole lot to talk about. The first and only episode was beyond bland and mind-numbingly dull. There's just not a whole lot going for it. It doesn't really do a great job of explaining its own existence, and I think that's probably because it's supposed to be shaded in this veil of mystery. The audience is supposed to be curious and longing to know more about AC's backstory. And considering the show never got a season 2, or actually, let alone an episode 2, clearly they weren't. I'm actually really surprised in hearing that despite WB passing on the show, it was mostly well received. That's sort of hard for me to imagine. Because while I love Smallville, this Aquaman show just was kinda a whole lot of nothing. I can see that it's definitely attempting to follow the Smallville motif, but it just comes up a little bit short for me. Maybe it's because Aquaman is aggressively uninteresting to me unless he's done right. And he's not the easiest character to get right. Like it's much easier to do it wrong. And seeing the character under the whole surfer frat brat guys just kind of feels a little bit lame. I get that it was done in Smallville, and I do find it a little bit less embarrassing there, but I think that's only for the fact that everything with Aquaman on that show was kind of just done in passing. Like, we don't see a whole lot of him or his backstory or what his day-to-day life is like, and because of that, it's more tolerable. Here, like, just watching a bunch of white dudes named Brad and Chad and Derek running around with their gelled up hair and wearing shark teeth for necklaces, I don't know, not for me. I also feel like this might be a little bit too much like Smallville, and whether that's by design or coincidence, I'm not sure. There's a bunch of things that link this pilot to the pilot of Smallville. The whole losing a parent and having to stay with an adoptive parent, following a natural disaster that isn't actually as natural as one might think. It's similar. There's some similarities here. This pilot almost feels like the Smallville pilot, but just with a different skin. Yes, I understand both of these events are part of those characters' histories. I'm just saying that, in practice, it rings a little bit familiar. Also, there's something about the Florida beach aesthetic that is so boring to me. I mean, I used to live in Florida. It's beautiful. I love it, love the beaches, people not so much, but the place looks lovely. It's great to vacation in. But it doesn't really make for the best background for a supposedly dramatic series. I came here to watch Aquaman, not Summerland. Although I do like the lighthouse. I'm fond of lighthouses, so personal points there. Arthur, or as he's known in the Smallville universe, AC and his mother are flying over the Bermuda Triangle, as you do, when they're struck down by a cyclone, as it does. His mother is kidnapped by the real-life Little Mermaid, who is looking significantly less adorable when she's not a Disney mascot. And Arthur, or Orin as his mother calls him in this, survives after being handed a seahorse necklace. Mom, look, I know your heart's in the right place, but that's a really shitty gift for him to remember you by. Kid's not gonna look down at that and remember you, he's gonna look at it and remember that one episode of SpongeBob. 10 years later, Arthur, who was 10 in the flashback and now almost 30 somehow, is still mystified by the disappearance of his mother, bringing it up every chance that he gets. But when the guy isn't reliving the trauma he experienced as a child, he's saving people and fish people alike. Meanwhile, a man is picked up in the ocean near the Bermuda Triangle talking about warning Orin. Oh, and he also has a matching seahorse necklace. Actually, now that I think of that, where was that necklace in that episode of Smallville? I don't remember him having embarrassing seahorse accessories. Proof! Aquaman's only had one appearance before and we're already retconning everything from what he was wearing down to who's portraying him. Nadia, the not-so-little mermaid previously mentioned, returns and tries to seduce AC into his early lateness. But he's saved by Ving Rhames, who is another Atlantean, who reveals to him his destiny of being Waterman. And now, the pilot AC saved during the pilot is now working with a group who is investigating the abnormal returns of people from the Bermuda Triangle. Nadia the Siren returns again at the end, almost kills Arthur's friend, who would have undoubtedly turned into his love interest, but is ultimately defeated. The end. I don't think any of this was bad, per se, but it felt really bleh. Like I could take it or leave it, and honestly I'm pushing more toward leaving it. It's not terrible. It's definitely not the worst thing that's been done with the Aquaman character, but it's far from the best thing that's been done with the Aquaman character. I'm really grateful that this pilot was made, but I'm also really grateful that the show was never picked up. On one hand, I'm sorry, Arthur. Bad phrasing on my part. My apologies. The show seemed like it was a little bit too campy. Although it also seemed like they were trying to take themselves very seriously. But they were failing. It almost comes off like Diet Smallville. The content was clearly taking itself seriously, but it really shouldn't have for the way that it was presented. The show in concept almost felt like Baywatch meets Baywatch Nights. The beach setting and surfer aesthetic is just such a weird attempt at modernizing Aquaman and making him more digestible for a viewing audience that I feel like in trying to legitimize and potentially pander to a younger demographic, they just made the whole thing even more goofy and completely unrelatable. However, it was Hartley's brief time in the role of Aquaman that earned him the role of Green Arrow, which I think the guy really nailed. So there was definitely good that came with the bad. Of course, this also created a monster because Justin Hartley was apparently not happy enough with only playing 2 of DC's greatest, and he eventually managed to do what Tom Welling couldn't do in 11 seasons by playing Superman. If there was ever a DC Hall of Fame, Justin Hartley has certainly earned his place in it. Ultimately, I'm happy that Justin was given the role of Green Arrow, and I'm glad that Alan Ritchson was able to return to the role of Aquaman. It just feels like everything worked out for the better that way. All in all, I think this is one superhero show that I'm actually glad wasn't picked up. And with all that being said, I was your least favorite YouTuber, Infuso, and I thank you all for watching. Hope to see you in the next one.
I am vengeance. I am the night, and that was Infuso. Just remember, if you're not tuning in, then you're missing out.
So, if you like the words that came out of his mouth hole, and you too would like to become a V-generate, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, nerds!
And if you're not joining the fun, you're in for one bad day. And you know what they say about having one bad day?
Catch him next time. Same bat time. Same bat channel.
It might have killed me because it's a show shot in the water, in the open water. So maybe it's a good thing that it didn't go.